often than his killing, because in that memorial, you see people like a Stephen Miller, right? They talk about we started civilization from the caves of Europe and da 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 da. And then you see how Christianity and white Christianity, Christian nationalism gets imposed into this Charlie Kirk thing. What were your thoughts as a pastor of seeing all these things going on with Charlie Kirk, where it starts from the killing to then at the memorial, where now he's become this martyr, if you will?
Man, it's so much.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot about the country that Charlie Kirk is the person that chooses to martyr. That Charlie Kirk is the person that it selects to lift up as an icon of how to do anything right. I think that says a lot. And it doesn't say anything new. It's just reiterating what has continuously been said about this country. And when I think about the spectacle around his death, because that's really what it was to me, or what it is to me, is just like a big spectacle. It reminds me of some insight I got from Otis Moss III, who got this insight from his dad, Otis Moss Jr., who said, with like colonial projects, like projects where people are going to be taken advantage of or exploited or oppressed, there are like three major tasks that have to be addressed in order to do that, right? So if I'm trying to oppress other people in a societal setup, like first, there's economic profitability, right? Does it make money? The Bible talks all the time about the danger of greed. You can't serve God and mammon. You know how people say, oh, you can't serve two masters. I mean, like you can't go to two different churches. No, it's saying you can't serve God and wealth. Mammon refers to wealth. It's letting us know how dangerous greed can be, right? And the love of all money, the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money is the root of all evil, but if you idolize money, then it becomes the root of your evil, because then you will do whatever you have to do to get there, right? So economic profitability is major. Like that's a decision that has to be made, a commitment to economic profitability. That's why they killed King. They killed King when he started talking about economic justice. When he was talking about integration, there were threats on his life. But like when he started talking about economics, it was time for him to go. Because you're not going to mess with our money, because that's most important. I said today, I believe labor strike by air traffic control will open up the government in less than 24 hours. Because if air traffic control go on the strike, it's going to shut down the whole country, right? So economic profitability, people in power are always concerned about that. Number two, and again, this comes from Otis Moss Jr., Otis Moss III gave it to me. Number two, after economic profitability, is political viability. So when we think about how we got Trump in place on a Christian nationalist platform, knowing that Trump ain't even a Christian, does not care about Christian values, but you got Christian nationalists propping him up. The way they did that is to tie him to King Cyrus in the Bible, right? So we got to figure out how we can explain this politically. You got economic profitability, you got political viability, and you got theological acceptability. Those are the three: the economics, the politics, and the theology. If you can get those things figured out, you can control the masses. Because when you bring God into it, now it's bigger than us. Because this is what God says. And
it's his will.
Yeah, you can't question what God says. And that's where we find ourselves. We're being played economically, politically, and theologically right now. The country is being played economically, politically, and theologically. And we really need to wake the hell up to what's going on.
Man, I agree, brother. And just from seeing some Black pastors, right, not address this issue, right, I think about Nat Turner, right? And I remember from, just being in college and have a conversation about Nat Turner in class. And I remember some of the white students, right? They would say, well, why didn't he appeal to his slave master and try to go about it peacefully like Martin Luther King? And I'm thinking 150, 200 years later, we still are having that same debate, that same issue. As Black people, why are we always viewed as we should have empathy with our oppressors? Should we, though, Christian? How do you feel about that?
Should we have empathy
Empathy.
for our
Because I saw it all
oppressors?
throughout this Charlie Kirk thing. Show some empathy, show some empathy.
Oh God. I don't believe in trying to reason with unreasonable people. We talked about it before this conversation began. Some stuff just ain't my work. I don't owe grief or mourning to the passing of someone who worked against my humanity. I don't owe them that. That's not a moral obligation. None of us do. Right. So let's pause with that and let's get back to like, what is my theological framework? I'm a pastor. I talk about theology and morals and ethics. So when you get down to my theological framework, it's rooted in the greatest commandment, where Jesus said you love God with your heart, soul, mind, and your strength. And the second part is equal to it. You love your neighbor as yourself. So love for self is at the core of the gospel. The gospel is dependent on love for self. You cannot live out the gospel of Jesus Christ effectively if that's what you're trying to do. And not everybody trying to do that, but if that's what you're trying to do, you can't do it effectively if you're not making a commitment to self-love, because it's right there, right? So if I love myself, that means I care about my own safety. And if somebody else is trying to jeopardize my safety, then loving myself means I need to make sure I'm safe. And I can't be worried about what that person is doing. I can't be worried about what they got going on, because I got to make sure I'm safe. I don't owe them anything because I owe myself my own safety first. And I'm not going to hurt myself trying to help them. I'm not going to deny my own real emotions trying to perform an emotion for somebody who I really honestly don't care about. And unfortunately, Christianity has been used to guilt us into grief and to shame us into feeling sad for people that wanted to see us destroyed. And I refuse. And we got to let go of that theology. And to let go of that theology, you don't have to let go of the message of Jesus. You can, but you don't have to. To let go of that theology, you got to let go of the indoctrination that you were given and to create how you see Jesus. And then, it's just so much.
Nah, for sure, brother. Because how do we then try to step into our power as Black Christians, right? Because I think that oftentimes, to your point, we feel so guilty or passive towards standing up for ourselves or towards fighting for our own rights. But then I think about Frederick Douglass. He was a Christian. Harriet Tubman, she was a Christian. Fannie Lou Hamer, she was. So how do we tap into our power and not just always just let things happen all the time?
I think we tap into our power by, first of all, acknowledging where our power is. I think it's difficult for us to tap into our power because we see all of the power being external. So as Christians, frequently people are looking for somebody to come save them because that's the theology. I need Jesus to come save me. I'm nothing without him. I'm a wretch undone. My righteousness is a filthy rag. So we're constantly looking for something to come save us, to the extent, then I might be jumping the gun here, where you got a whole lot of Black Christians today who feel like Jesus saves them from their Blackness because I'm Christian before I'm Black. And I don't know how that works, because I am quite literally Black before I'm Christian. And personally, I don't identify as Christian. I identify as a spiritual humanist, right? But I am a pastor of a Black church. And with that being said, only 1/3 of my faith community identifies as Christian. But for those who identify as Christian. You were black before you became a Christian. You were born black. You chose to follow Jesus. And there is no washing away your blackness. This whole argument that, oh, once you are in Christ, you become a new creature. All old things are passed away. Why do I want my blackness to pass away? Why is that a desire that people have, for your blackness to pass away? That's a question that people need to consider, because I don't want mine to pass away. I like it. That's where my power resides. Our power is in our shared story. Our power is in our shared culture. Our power is in our shared resilience. Our power is in our roots. Our power is in our heritage. We brought that and made something out of this bullshit Christianity that was presented to us. We brought that. That's why the Black church is so unique. That's why the Black church was at the center of liberation movements in the Black community for decades, for generations, because we brought that. We made that what it was. That's us. That's the God in us. The God is in us. We don't need to look externally, because it's already in us. But we got to believe that. We got to believe that for ourselves. And unfortunately, fundamentalist indoctrination does not allow us to believe that.